the Josh Paul Podcast. And today I have a very, very special guest. This might be, I don't know, this might be the most honored guest I've had on yet. I don't know if I could say that. Definitely the oldest guest I've had on yet.
Thanks a lot.
I have Bert Campbell on. This is my Sunday school teacher from my church, University Baptist Church. And I've really gotten to know Bert the past year, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit. But the plan is to be moving back home soon, back to the Midwest, to Illinois, Indiana area. So I figured I should get Mr. Campbell. No,
it's Bert.
I'm not allowed. I try.
You cannot call me Mr. Campbell. He's buried over in Anderson, South Carolina.
Because he's your father, I suppose.
That's correct.
So yes, I figured I needed to get Bert on before time ran out for me. So thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it very much. And it's Wednesday evening, so we just had a little Wednesday night service. So it's probably almost 9:00. So it's getting close to my bedtime. So I don't know how long I'll go here.
It's May 14th.
It's May 14th.
2025.
That's true.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I remember thinking about 2025. Like, I remember thinking about, like, the years, and I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, like, when it's 2025, I will have, like, my life will be perfect. I remember thinking that. Or, like, I'll be everything I want to be when in 2025. I'll be 25. I'll be a real grown-up then.
Right.
And now it's here, and it's like, oh.
You haven't reached perfection yet.
I'm still a kid. I'm not perfect yet. Anyways, did you ever think, can I ask this question? Did you ever think you would live to see the year 2025? Like, was that like a thought? Like,
I never thought about it in terms of the year itself. Did I think I would live to be almost 70 years old? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cause I figure, I hope to live to 70, 75, 80,
yeah,
or beyond. But but then I think like, oh, that's going to be like 2080. And it's like, whoa,
sure.
Like that sounds like
long time.
That sounds like a sci-fi novel.
But it'll come so quick. You'll look around and say, how'd that happen?
I already feel like that.
It is.
Sometimes
it gets faster as you get older.
That's what everybody tells me.
It's
so
true.
That's scary. Cause like it already goes so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so how long have you been at University Baptist Church?
1979, 1980.
Okay.
So how long's that? 45 years?
Yep, something like that. Because my dad was born in 1976.
Right. Well, I was born in 55.
My grandpa was born in 50.
Yeah.
So you've been at UBC for 45 years. And how long have you, I was curious, I was thinking about this earlier, how long have you been teaching the college group?
Well, I started teaching the high school shortly after going to UBC, and it hasn't been continuous, but I've been teaching so long I can't even remember.
And has it always looked similar, like as far as like the amount of kids, or does it fluctuate?
It fluctuates. I mean, we are not at the highest point we've been by any stretch, but you really can't go by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You go by who's coming and just the relationships, and then seeing how God's working in people's lives, how God's working in my life. So it's been one of the great joys of our life for Gretchen and myself has been ministering to college students. We've seen hundreds go through the church.
I'm sure you have.
Years, because it's a transitory ministry.
Yes,
people. I figure in most cases we have people for maybe 2 years, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Well, because University Baptist, it's called University Baptist. I don't know the exact origins of the name, but there's a lot of universities around here.
Yeah.
And so we have Bob Jones, which is where I go.
Right.
And then we have Clemson,
yep,
which is 15 minutes from church. Anderson University,
mm-hmm.
North Greenville University. What else do we have around here?
Southern Wesleyan, Tri-County Tech.
So we just have a lot of colleges.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of college students that are coming through the church, which is really cool.
Right.
And that's like, I've enjoyed seeing that because it kind of keeps the church young a little
It does.
bit. Does that, like, it keeps it from getting stale?
No, it does.
Which is really cool. And then, yeah, you don't have 30 years to minister to those kids, but you can speak into their lives for a short time, which is...
Yeah, if I named for you 5 people with the most influence in my life, one of them was a gentleman that I knew for 3 months. And so it's not the length of time, it's the impact. And so this gentleman had a tremendous impact on my life.
How do you have an impact on someone in a short time?
The Lord does that. I don't think you can try to do it. I think you meet people where they are, treat them with respect, treat them fairly, speak truth to them, and then let the relationship take care of itself. I mean, why is it you like some people and don't like others? And it happens, but as a believer, you have to say, God's bringing people into my life for a purpose and a reason. Now, what's that reason? And can I join God in what He's doing and be a part of that? Does that make sense? Can I join God in what He's doing?
In that person's life.
And be a part of that.
Because I like what you said a minute ago, that like you can't, or you shouldn't try necessarily to be influential in someone's life. Is that right?
Yeah, because they'll think you're trying to manipulate them.
Right. Or you're trying to like, or you're like,
you can't manipulate.
You're better than them, or
you
something.
can't manipulate young people.
Why not?
Because you guys see right through it. You tell me why not.
You're right. No, I think that that's funny that you'd say that, but that's like one of my things as a teacher. I'll tell you this. So as a teacher of college students, I have quickly learned that young people are smarter than you give them credit for. And if you treat them like they're dumb, they'll hate, that's a major turnoff.
And they'll act like they're dumb.
Yes, they will.
They won't give you anything.
But they know, yeah. But if you treat them like they're adults and like they're smart,
correct,
and you have respect for that, then they really appreciate that. And I know that's true of myself.
And they'll try.
Yeah.
They'll give you the best they have.
So then, this is very interesting. So let's talk about this for a second. So you teach Sunday school, and I've sat in a lot of Sunday school classes in churches over the years where it has felt like the teacher or the pastor or the people in the church were trying to have they were trying to manipulate or just like be influential. And I always hated that. Like, I always just felt like I like that really frustrates me. And so, but of course, church is church, and we have Sunday school, and so that's what we're there to talk about spiritual things and to talk about our lives. And so, kind of bouncing off what you said a minute ago, how do you go about it as a Sunday school teacher, or as a, teaching a college class or teaching a youth group, and speaking truth without crossing that line into like trying too hard?
Oh, well, my philosophy and the way I teach is I just read the scriptures over and over. The passages that we may do, I may be reading that for weeks ahead of time. And as I enter a class, it's not that I necessarily have this sermon prepared or all these notes. In fact, I usually don't have notes. And I ask the Holy Spirit to do a work in me and a work in the students and lead us. And then we start reading. And, a lot of times preachers would be better off to read the scriptures than they would to say anything about it, because that would be a perfect sermon, to just read the Bible. But it's interesting because I'll see God put together the lesson, and I will see it have some effect in students or in the people's lives. They'll appreciate it, And all I can say is to God be the glory. Because I didn't plan for that. I planned to try to make the Scripture come more alive so that the next time you go and read it on your own, it'll come alive for you. And that's what I try to do when I teach. I'm not a deep-seated theologian.
Which I think young people appreciate. Like, there's a balance there. But I know I've really enjoyed your class because, well, it takes a lot of pressure off of you as the teacher, because it's like, it's not up to you to give them the great truth that's going to change their life, but you're giving space for the Lord to do that, because He knows their lives better than you could or I could. Yeah. And so it's just like, it's a very relaxed approach, but like intentional, but still relaxed, I guess. But let's see. So this year that I've been going to University Baptist, we've been going through Acts.
Right.
When did you start that?
It hasn't been that long ago. I think so. Did we start at the beginning of the semester, or
like the beginning of the year? Maybe?
No, the beginning of the year.
I think so.
Yeah. So we in fact, this past Sunday we got through the midway point through finished chapter 12. So we're shutting down Acts now. I'm going to use Titus for the summer, and then come back to Acts in the fall when the students are back.
How do you decide what book to do?
I just whatever I'm reading, I find interest. I mean, I may be reading somewhere and say, "Boy, this is really interesting. Let's just go through this next." There's no rhyme or reason for it, except that I do try to, if I'm doing like a gospel or a New Testament book, I will try to go back to the Old Testament and do something there. Okay. So through the years, we've covered a lot.
What has been some of your favorite places to cover in class?
You know, we're getting ready to go through Titus, and I had opportunity a year ago or so to preach at UBC, and I preached the whole book in one message. Brent laughed at me. I said, "Well," he said, "You going to do that?" And I said, "Sure. Wait, just watch." we got
did
through
the whole
it.
thing. How long is Titus? I forget how long Titus is.
Oh, it's 3 chapters.
Okay. So it's quick.
It was I'm looking forward to doing that this summer, but we're not going to do it in one lesson.
Do it a little slower.
But there's no rhyme or reason to it. I just pray, if I know that people are going through certain things, and I know there might be a passage or that can address it, or I may go and teach that book just to get to that passage when the time comes.
Well, so I noticed this year that, so here, I'll talk about this for a second. So I was really looking for a church for a lot of years in my college experience, bounced around, and finally started coming to University Baptist consistently back in August and September as the school year started. And I would come to church, and the sermon would be a blessing and the music would be a blessing, and then I'd go sit in your class, and it just felt like what I needed to hear, I was hearing. Like I would come every week, and I would just leave, and I'd be like, I really needed to hear that this week. Like I really needed to. And you were often talking about through Acts, which was so interesting because I'd never thought of Acts this way, but you were talking about how the Lord works and you don't always see it, and life doesn't always go your way, and things happen, and you would often bring up, as we were going through these little stories and Acts, like, how do you think this person was feeling when this happened? Or what do you think this person was thinking when this happened? And do you think this person was planning on this happening? And I would always sit there and I would just be like, I've never thought about Acts in this way. Because Acts is often like, it's the evangelism book, and it's the new church book, and so we learn all about the new church, but really it's about people and like their struggles in life. And the way you framed it just applies to college students very well. So I was wondering, is that kind of a recurring theme for you over the years, no matter where you are, that you're looking at people and how the Lord's working and they may not see it?
That and the fact that I've always said that the ministry that I've always been most interested in is campus ministry and military ministry. And what I've always said is the reason is that when you're 18 to 25 years old, it's the last chance you've got to get it right before you completely ruin your life. And when I say that, not making a joke, but if you end up getting into a bad marriage, or you get into the wrong type of work, or you fall into sin, it can make life really hard. But if you can get your direction to the Lord and start walking with Him, being guided by the Holy Spirit, and then allow the Lord to take you and lead you where He wants you to go. And if it does end up being marriage, to marry the person He wants you to marry, I think you have a much better chance of having a very productive life, and productive spiritually. I mean, that's really what it's life boils down to bringing glory to God. How do we do that? We walk day by day, one day at a time. We take the light that we have and move according to the light that we have. And that's going to look different for different people. You can't just say one shoe fits everybody.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful about that, because people will come up sometimes with ideas that you'll hear and you'll think, I don't know if that's a good idea or not. But you don't need to just blast them with their idea. Listen to it, and then help them talk about it and think through it. And I mean, sometimes you say, I can understand where you're coming from, and that may work out. Not just say, oh man, you're really making a mistake, because you just don't know.
Are you talking about like ideas like for their life, like
their
life choices?
What I'm going to do, the job I'm going to take. I'm going to move here. I'm going to do this. You don't need to bully people.
Right.
Just encourage them.
Right.
And then if it doesn't work out, if what you think might be a problem ends up being a problem, you've left that door open that they'll come back to you and say, hey, I'm having a problem. Can you help me? And
then you don't have to be like,
well, I told you so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't do that.
Right. Well,
if I see you about to jump off a cliff, I'm not going to let you do it.
It's comforting.
But there's a big latitude with what people decide to do with their lives. And you have to be very gracious, because God could be absolutely moving somebody in a direction that I don't think is real wise, but that's the Lord working. And maybe He's going to put them in a situation that I would consider bad, because He wants to teach them something. So I got to be very careful.
Right. You got to be careful with thinking that you know what's best for everyone. I was actually just talking to my dad about this today. We were texting about something, but I won't give details for the thing. But like, it does seem like a lot of Christians, like if I could say that, they get caught up in like an ideology or a pattern of thinking, and it's like, oh, I figured it all out, or I have all the answers for everyone. And if I find someone who disagrees with me, then it's like it's a lot of like just judgment and just unkindness, and I don't know. And I don't know where I'm going with this, I guess. But
well, listen to this. Now I see through the glass darkly, but then I'll see face to face. So we have to understand we don't have perfect clarity into anything.
No.
So let's just take the light we have, operate according to that, which should help keep us out of heinous sin.
Right.
And then let's be gracious one toward another and understand that there are going to be differences.
And I think where I was going, now that I think about it, was it's more influential to come alongside someone and understand their situation and, speak truth when they ask for it and help them think about something, rather than assuming that I know what's best for that person.
Correct.
Right. And like, that's, I think, a good mindset to take towards a class or towards your church or your sphere of influence is like, I don't know what God's doing.
Right.
I read through part of Job last semester with a friend, and like, that was my takeaway. It was like, you know what? I really don't speak for God. I think I'm going to stop trying to do that, but I don't know what God's doing in your life. I don't know what your situation is. And I know some true things, and I'm here for you and I'm here to help you.
Right. But
really you have to figure out your life.
Yeah. I haven't taught through Job, and I don't think I'm going to.
I don't know. It might be really good.
It's pretty tough.
It's a lot. But like, I just noticed like pretty much that was the like, God comes back at the end and says to every single one of those guys, he's like, you think you know what I'm doing and you do not, and you need to stop acting like you do.
We could do that. We could do that part.
We could do just those chapters. It'd probably be very, very good. But anyways, it's been a blessing to me. So thank you for.
Well, you've been a blessing. You've been a tremendous blessing to the church. And when I came to you and suggested you join the church, you acted on it. And you can speak to this, but I think that was a big moment for you, realizing that you needed to place yourself under the authority of a local church.
Yeah, part of me was like, well, because I joined back in January, I think, and part of me was like, why am I doing this? Because I'm probably leaving at the end of the semester. But then I was like, I don't care. I was like, I can do this, and I can still leave, and it's still okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
And so yeah, I'm glad I did that, and I appreciate you prodding me, because I wouldn't have done it otherwise if you hadn't said that to me. But you said a couple things to me this year that have stuck with me. What was the thing you said? There was something you told me that you said this to me one of the first times I talked to you. We were over here at your house for lunch, like early last semester. And I was telling you about kind of who I was, and you asked me, you said, well, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I was like, I don't know yet. And you're like, okay. And then you said, are you a ministry kid? And I was like, yeah. And then you're like, yeah. And then you said, I've noticed that you have two kids. You have two types of kids. You have ministry kids, and then you have non-ministry kids. And you said, non-ministry kids are usually looking to find a job and get their life, and get financially stable and those types of things. And you said ministry kids are often looking for their calling. And I think you told me that, neither one of those is a bad thing, but both need to think probably need to think a little bit more than the other way. That like, if you're a non-ministry kid, then like it's good to think about what would God have me do. And if you're a ministry kid, it's probably good to think about, how am I going to make money and how am I going to support a family and myself and make a living? And so that has just been in my head ever since you said that. And
so now you're going to be a Christian school teacher.
Good. So I don't know if I acted on it or not.
No, you're doing great.
But like, it was very good for me to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how I naturally think about life. Because my dad's been a pastor, my grandpa's a pastor.
Sure.
And so it's just good for me to put that in my brain.
Yeah. I mean, God works in your heart, and He gives you gifts. He's given you tremendous gifts. Your musical ability is extraordinary.
Thank you.
And your speaking ability. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised of any direction you would go in the future, whether it would be in continuing to teach. I could see you going to the next level and getting your doctorate and teaching at the university level. Maybe come back and teach at Clemson.
Maybe, you never know.
You could come back and what could you teach?
I would love that. I'd teach, I don't know, communication and political stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, you could do it.
We'll see. But
you could do it. But the point is, none of that would surprise me. So time will tell, and you just take it one day at a time. In the meantime, you're going to get to go live your dream, be closer to your family, coach a little ball, teach kids. Be out of school 9 months out of the year.
Praise the Lord for that.
3 months out of the year.
I need it. I've been in school for too long.
Isn't that something? That'll be good.
Oh, it's going to be great. But you've been quite influential this year. It's kind of like you said a minute ago about like you don't need time. You don't need a lot of time, even though that's not a bad thing. But I think the Lord, one lesson that He taught me this year is that the Lord brings the people into your life that you need when you need them. So I came into this year, I think I said this on Sunday, but I'll say it on here. I came into this year probably at one of the lowest points, if not the lowest point I've ever been in my life, and felt very lonely going into this year. As you go through school, people start to leave, and I had changed jobs at school, so I was working with new people, and I had moved from my old room and everything, and so I just was living a totally different life, and I just didn't really know very many people, and I just felt like some stuff had happened, and the year did not look exciting. I'll say that the year looked tough and long and dark, and I was just not doing very well. But I pushed through and tried to stay faithful as much as I could. And the Lord gave me this church, and He put you in my life, which you just kept saying exactly what you needed to say. Like I said, every week. And He brought like just several friends that I didn't have at the beginning of the year that I have now. Right. And like, I didn't know any of that was coming. I couldn't predict it. You know what I mean? And there were times I just wanted to give up and leave. But the Lord was very faithful, and He gave me the people I needed when I needed them. And so anyway, that's been a takeaway for me this year.
That period right after you graduate, you're going to weddings for friends. People are getting married. You stayed at school. And now everybody you came to school with is gone.
Right.
And I can understand, and it's a very difficult time.
Yep.
And I had sort of a similar experience, except I graduated, and I took off, and I reported to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, 6 weeks later. And that was a lonely ride from Anderson, South Carolina to Lawton, Oklahoma. And that was the same age you are now. And it was that year that I met people. God brought people into my life. I became a part of a church out there, and that really helped me. So the Lord it's really where you are in life. You weren't unique in that's a transitional time, because up until then, every year it was the next thing. Yes. It was the next grade. It was the next whatever.
There was an obvious next step.
Until you get to graduate from college.
Yep.
And if you don't have a girl and you aren't getting married, you're feeling like life has left me behind. And that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
And I experienced that, so that's one of the reasons I have so much empathy for you guys. I remember what that was like.
How long were you in Oklahoma?
I was in Oklahoma 6 months.
Okay.
Just for officer basic course.
Gotcha.
U.S. Army Field Artillery.
And then you came
school
back here?
Then I came back here.
Back to South Carolina?
I did.
So can you give some advice, I don't know, to guys like me who are finishing school and like then they're in that spot. Who have come to that precipice, like that cliff where it's like, I don't know the next step. Like, what's some advice you could give? Do the next right thing.
I mean, it's going to be clear that there's some things you should do. So let's stage it. You're sitting in a dorm, and you got Monday mornings coming, and you're depressed. You're sitting there Sunday night. There's nothing to do, nobody to talk to. Well, what's the next right thing? Get up at 8 o'clock and get to your class and teach it with some zest and gusto, and do what you're supposed to do. And then when that's over, the next, go get some exercise. Go do something. Wednesday night's coming up. Find a church and go to church. It's the next right thing, one day at a time. And as you do that, you'll be surprised how God just will bring people into your life, or he'll minister to you. And you aren't trying to think 6 months ahead. You aren't trying to think a year ahead, because if you do, you'll just lay there and not be able to sleep. Your eyes will be wide open, and you're worried, and you have anxiety and all this sort of thing. Just get up and do the next right thing. I mean, get up in the morning and open your Bible. You don't have to spend 2 hours there, and you don't have to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. But open your Bible, find a passage, read it, think about it, encourage yourself with it. Know that you have a God in heaven who loves you. And remember this, that God has a unique, I'm going to say it again, a unique plan for your life. One step at a time, one day at a time, you will find it. 20 years from now, 30 years, 50 years from now, you'll look back in the rearview mirror and you'll say, I cannot believe what God has done. I cannot believe what God has done.
And like I said a minute ago, I've seen that even this year, where it's like, a lot of this year was that. It was like the next day, the next right thing, go to work, do it, teach the class. And it was not easy, but now I look back and I say, okay, like some really good things came out of this year, even though it was so hard, but some very good things came out of it, and I'm grateful. So I'm very thankful. Very grateful for what the Lord has done this year. And I'm sure that is just true, extrapolated over your life.
It is. It's going to be a continuum. So what are you going to do? Do the next right thing. Now tomorrow, since school's out, you don't have a whole lot you have to do, right? But you still do the next right thing.
Right.
Spend some time with the Lord. Go encourage somebody. A lot of discouraged people out there.
That is very true.
Right?
I heard somebody say one time that it's amazing how little it takes to encourage someone.
It's exactly right.
And I've always thought about that since I heard that.
That's exactly right. Sometimes just, hey, how are you? A handshake, looking somebody in the eye can pick up their day, even a stranger. So, yes, there's always somebody a lot worse off than I am.
Right. Right. And do you think it helps to get your mind off of yourself when you're in those low times?
Oh,
when you're in that state of like, I don't know what to do. And I feel, if it's like, well, maybe think about somebody else for a while.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. It's not about you, my friend. It's about the Lord. Bless him. When you're really down, just say, Lord, I'm going to praise you. Go ahead, and nobody's looking. Raise your hands in prayer and praise. Grab your guitar and sing some worship songs if you'd like. But yeah, get yourself out of that. Don't let yourself sit there in self-pity, because it just causes you problems. It's kind of like being bitter. Being bitter about things doesn't hurt anybody but yourself.
Right.
And so
it's like drinking poison.
Yeah,
or
it really
How does
is.
that saying go? It's like I don't forget how that goes, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, just it's not about you and I, or you and me, whatever that's you're supposed to say. It's about him. It's about Christ.
So here's a question for you. Talking about college students, talking about young people, you've been teaching them for a long time. Have they always generally been the same, or have they changed over the years?
They've been the same from the perspective of they're in the same stage of life and they're facing the same things. I think that today's generation, I'm seeing a lot more talent with some of the kids that are coming through. They're pretty bright. Not that they weren't before, and maybe it's the way things are expressed. Now, years and years ago, it was not uncommon to have 5 or 6 preacher boys in class. And today, I don't think I have any. So I'm seeing a difference today in men called to the ministry, which is kind of interesting. But there's a lot of commonality with students from 30 years ago and today.
Why do you think less are going into the ministry?
I think that our churches aren't necessarily preaching as much in that direction, or doesn't seem to be as much encouragement. Or the other side of it is we just don't have a lot of young men right now. I mean, those things go in seasons, but, I'd love to have half a dozen men that were going to move toward the ministry, and then get a few of them to help us with our campus ministry. Because Clemson's such a huge opportunity. And there are a lot of believers in Clemson, but there's also a lot of unbelievers. And, you just have to get out there and play soccer with them and get to know people.
Mm-hmm. I love how Pastor Cook talks so much about how not every young guy needs to be a preacher. That's not everyone's calling,
right? Which
is really good,
right?
But then it is for some people,
right?
And then I think it's like, I remember my dad one time talked about how he grew up in the ministry, and he was a pastor, but he said when he had to work another job at one point for a while, he was like, that was really a very good experience for a preacher.
Yeah.
Because you kind of realize what your congregation
goes
through and deals with.
Yeah.
And so, you can be annoyed that people don't always show up on a Wednesday night, but then when you worked, 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock and like you're like, oh, this is actually like hard.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, it may not be a bad thing that young guys are not immediately seeking that out. I think that I don't know if this is true, but I wonder if my generation, maybe we're not all like aiming for that at the moment, being a pastor, being a preacher, but like if that will happen to a lot of us as we get a little older. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So it's, and we're doing other things for a while, and maybe that's a good thing.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Right.
But kind of like you said a minute ago about, the way to minister to Clemson students is to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
The way to minister to anybody is to get to know them. That's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time. Is like, it's not about me like, dumping truth into you, it's like, it's more about like me getting to know you,
right,
and speaking when those little times come.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, just a thought, but
yeah, Lord knows. I mean, the thing that concerns me, I'm just thinking 10 years, 15 years down the road, Lord knows, Lord will provide preachers. And I'm telling you, bivocational is nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's difficult. But to have your elders to be bivocational is not a bad thing at all. But again, many times you do need that primary pastor to be full time.
Right.
The guy that's going to preach every Sunday.
Right. And that's a gift and a calling.
It's a tall order.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Okay, question. Here's another question for you. So, what advice and what would you tell a young guy who wants to get married and he's looking? What does he need to be doing?
So he doesn't have anybody in mind?
Yeah.
Boy, he better be praying. And get some of your family and your grandmother and ask them to pray. You pray the Lord will show me the right one. That's the biggest thing. Is just pray that you could meet the person that God would have for you.
And then when you do find that person,
become friends.
Become friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you somebody that you can talk to, that's a great place to start. And
that does help.
If you can't, you're going to have a problem. And let that friendship develop. And once that friendship develops, and if you have a common spiritual platform, and then you'll be able to find out, are we moving in the same direction? Are we, it's what I want to do or believe God's called me to do, or what she wants to do compatible. And just let it develop from there. But I will tell you, when you get to be 25, 26, 27, it shouldn't take you a year to figure it out if she or he's the right one. Or for girls,
Right,
I mean, that shouldn't be it shouldn't take very long.
You should be at a point where
the
you
older you
know.
are, you should kind of know.
That's interesting.
But also remember that you aren't perfect, so don't expect perfection. And just praise the Lord if you can find somebody that'll love you back.
I remember, it's true. It's very true. I remember
true.
you, at some point during this year, you told a little story about when your son-in-laws came to you before they married your daughters,
right?
And they asked to marry your daughters, and like what you told them, like what you're
right.
And I remember being very I was a little surprised actually with what you said.
Right.
So I was wondering if you wanted to share that.
If I can, I'll try. So I told the boys when they would come to talk to me, I told them there were several things I expected. I expected them to had to make a living, to always be able to provide for my daughter, that they would always have health insurance, that we wouldn't end up with no health insurance, and that they would take care of retirement. There were three things there that I said, I expect you to do that. And I feel the same way today.
So the reason I was surprised is because those are three very practical things.
Yeah.
And so, let's see, how do I want to say this? When you started to tell the story, I was expecting something along the lines of like, well, like something very spiritual or something. And so just like the practicality of it was just, I was like, that's actually really good.
Well, now you got to understand something. I've got 4 son-in-laws. 3 are in full-time ministry. Well, actually, I'm sorry. All of them are in full-time ministry. And so, again, going back to that kind of how you talk to the preacher, preachers sometimes need to be told that you need to have these things.
Right.
Because I've seen too many preachers, and it's not honestly, a lot of what happens with preachers and money is because the churches just don't pay them enough money. And what are you going to sacrifice? You're not going to have the Roth IRA. You're not going to have or heaven knows you don't have any health insurance or something like that. So I'm not faulting those men.
Right.
But all my boys that came to me were in the ministry, headed in the ministry, and so I mean that's partly why. The other things that you would expect you would say, I didn't feel like I needed to say.
Because of who they were.
They had great character.
And that makes sense. So you were kind of saying the thing that they probably needed to hear at the time.
And I didn't want to find myself 5 years into this thing saying, what's going on? I mean, you don't have any health insurance. Right. I mean, you aren't doing this.
Right.
So anyway, that's
very good though. It's honestly though, I mean, most of the guys I know could need to hear, like I needed to hear that.
Well, you need to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Even as a single person, you need to go on ahead and start your Roth IRA now. You don't need to wait. I mean, as soon as you get that first job, and you'll have health insurance. And
well, let me ask you that question. So I know you said not talk about too much about like that side of your life, but can you give any basic like advice along those lines to young people?
Well, okay. So the 2 things I tell young people.
Okay.
The most important thing you have is your ability to earn money.
Okay.
What happens if you can't work? Where's the money coming from?
The government or nowhere.
There are some benefits that you may qualify for. So I would always recommend to young single people or even young marrieds that their greatest asset is your ability to earn money, get a disability insurance policy. Pays you if you can't work. A lot of people your age don't even know there's such a thing out there.
Interesting.
And then the second thing is something like a Roth IRA, and put money into it. The first day you get a job, the first check you get, portion of it goes into those 2 things. and then you live off the rest of it.
Interesting.
So that would be kind of when I do seminars and stuff that comes down to, those are the two things I recommend to
disability insurance and a Roth IRA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
I
this
mean,
is the
if
kind
you
of
didn't
stuff
do
I need to
anything
learn.
else, that would be pretty good. Because think about it. If I ended up having a disability, I had an accident or something and could not work the rest of my life, I mean, that's pretty bleak.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had $4,000 a month coming in with a 3% inflation rider, that's going to pay me some money for, till I'm 70 years old.
Interesting.
Or something like that. It's huge.
Yeah, I honestly have never heard of that. So.
And you hadn't thought about it because nobody talks about it.
Right. And we're all young, so
That's
we're all going to be healthy forever, right?
Nothing will ever happen.
Never. Invincible.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Interesting. That's really good.
Till it does.
It's very helpful to hear that. Like I said, this is just the stuff that doesn't come to my brain like immediately, So it's good for me to like think about some of these things. But great. Okay. A couple more questions for you. So how did you get into beekeeping?
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I'd been reading and seeing that the bee population was decreasing. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a nice garden in the backyard. There would be no reason that I couldn't get a hive of bees and put it back there and, make a positive contribution to the bee population. And so I went online and I found a guy in Anderson that had bees. So I called him. His name was Billy Kraft. I said, Billy, my name's Bert Campbell. I'm interested in keeping bees. Could you help me? He said, I sure can. Well, it ended up that I knew his pastor. In fact, his pastor was at church tonight and prayed for us, Gary Bill. And
Gotcha.
I went and bought 2 hives of bees from him and got packages, put them in, and he mentored me and told me what to do for the first 2 or 3 years that I had bees. And then, bless his heart, he got cancer, he passed away. And then I've got another man that helps me. I've been keeping bees now 10 or 11 years. But did we ever have fun with those bees? We had no idea what we were doing. we read about it.
Love it.
He told me what to do. But the first year we brought honey in, and we're trying to get the honey out, and we butchered the comb. We didn't know how to do it.
That's so funny.
And it was so good. But
I know, I've done it. Yeah.
So it was so good. It was a lot of fun, but that's how I got started keeping bees.
Would you recommend it?
Keeping bees?
To people who have like the land and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Now, it takes some time, but there's something very therapeutic about going and checking on your bees. It's really animal husbandry because you have to treat them. You have to do certain things at different times. You become a horticulturist almost, and that you're paying attention to the bloom and all this sort of stuff. So it's a great skill, and it has a positive impact on the bee population.
And then you have your big garden, so
yeah.
I'm sure that they
I've also got a garden in Anderson.
Do you really?
At the farm.
That's right. You guys have that property over there.
We got about 8/10 of an acre of corn right now. It's 2 feet high. It's really looking
interesting.
Good. Yeah.
That sounds like my old stomping grounds.
Yeah,
growing corn.
We're growing peaches and cream this year.
You're growing peaches?
No. Corn.
Wait. Oh, I see.
It's called peaches and cream.
Interesting.
It's a bicolor, white and yellow.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sweet corn.
That's awesome.
Yep.
You said how many acres?
8/10.
8/10 of an acre.
Which is a lot when you get out picking it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. A couple rows of corn in a garden actually does. Yeah, it gives you more than you think.
We'll hopefully, if it makes, we'll be picking it a couple of truckloads.
Okay. What else do you grow?
Out there?
Yeah.
That's all.
Just the corn out there?
Yeah, out here in my garden in the back, I grow tomatoes and peppers and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's parents love gardening. And they have a big one every year. And then now my dad and mom have gotten into it. And Dad was like, he was always just a preacher and music guy and different stuff. But he's discovered this love of gardening now.
It's wonderful. We've got blackberries, blueberries, and figs too.
I love it. We have the same thing at my place. We have the blackberry bushes, and we have mulberry trees.
Oh, mulberries are good.
Yeah, my grandpa planted them years ago, and they're like his favorite berry.
Yeah.
So like we live on Mulberry Street actually, and then we have a couple mulberry trees in the back.
We've got one out at the farm.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's wild. It was volunteered. So,
man, you could do all kinds of stuff. But how many acres do you have on that farm?
130 or so, something like that.
Interesting.
That's where I grew up.
That's the one that's been in your family for a long time.
That's where I grew up.
Okay. Well, very cool. So, okay, last question. What is your outlook on Clemson football for this fall?
Walt, who's on 105.5, Walt Neptula, says he's all in on Clemson.
That's what I've been hearing.
And he has not been since 2018.
Really?
But he believes that they're going to have a very special team.
This is the year.
But I don't like to make any predictions other than to say that we've got to get ready and beat LSU, which is our opening game, 7:30, August 29th on ABC. So it's going to be the big game. And you need to watch that.
I will be watching that.
You got to watch that.
I will.
The Valley's going to rock.
Is it going to be here in Death Valley?
The Valley's going to rock.
You know, I have never had a college team.
Yeah.
I've always been pro football. Because I grew up in Virginia, so we had like Virginia Tech, but it wasn't really that close to us, and nobody really cared. And then we moved to Illinois, but like I'm not really from there, and the U of I is not that great anyway.
Right.
So I've always been needing a college football team.
Yeah.
And I think I'm close to conversion. I told somebody that as soon as I buy some merch, if I find a hat or a shirt,
oh man, you'll be all in.
That's it. And if I move back to, as I'm moving back to Indiana or whatever, then I can wear it around and make people mad at me. And, and so that'll be really fun.
Yeah, they'll hate you.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to that.
It's good. Clemson just signed a 12-year home and home with Notre Dame.
What does that mean?
They'll play the next 12 years. They're going to play here 1 year, Notre Dame.
Interesting.
Up there. So
maybe I'll go see them.
That's right.
It's like an hour from where I'm going to be.
That's right where you are.
Yeah. Do they ever play? Like I'm sure they play Purdue once in a while.
No, I can't ever remember us playing Purdue.
Maybe they don't.
We don't play
Purdue's
a lot
in
of Big Ten schools.
Okay.
About the only one we played consistently has been Ohio State.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Purdue's not up there with the big boys. So.
Well, they had their years.
But like they had a good basketball team for a little while there. But
yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic.
That's what I've been hearing. Jonathan Bosberg was telling me the other week. He's like, "Yeah, this is it. This is the year for us." So we'll see.
You can never tell.
You never know.
You never know. And the other thing Walt says is you got to have a little bit of luck. Now, as a believer, I'm not a big believer in luck, but I understand what he's saying.
Right. Sometimes the wind just has to blow.
You have to have the blessing of the ball bouncing the right way.
It's the blessing of the Lord in a way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So.
Yep.
Well, that's great. Well, go Clemson.
Go Tigers.
And thank you for this. This has been really good. I appreciate you coming on.